Welcome to the Just Third Way podcast, where we ask the question, would you rather own or be owned? Brought to you by the Center for Economic and Social Justice at cesj.org. Hello, podcast listeners. Thanks for tuning in again. Today we have a great guest, one of the greatest activists that the Just Third Way has ever known, Mr. Russell Williams. Hey, Russell.
Good morning, Dave. Excited to be here this morning.
Well, we are so glad to have you on. I've wanted to do it several times, and I know you're busy with all the things you have going on, from your career and your activism and political work, and you still do the show also, don't you? You do the challenge?
I do. But what we're doing here is a vital part of advancing, if you will, any thing that I try to do and hope to do. Quite frankly, with my activism and the work that I believe we've been called to do.
Right. Yeah, I think actually I was even on your show one time. I wonder, that's probably been 3 years ago or so.
Yeah, you called in, and it was, very, I think, for our audience, it was very enlightening, if you will, and very helpful, in terms of the conversation around the Center for Economic and Social Justice, knowing that a person of your caliber, quite frankly, has such a level of commitment and interest to it, speaks volumes or spoke volumes to our listeners. So we thank you for that.
Well, I do think that I was somewhat unique at the time. I was one of the first people who came from a more conservative camp, and I
Right.
think even on that call, I remember learning something from you when we were talking about how, there's a certain number of people who have never had to work a day in their life and have a significant income just because of the way they were born, and I thought about that recently. So
yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, it was especially here in Connecticut. I think, it's often, I think, sort of a sidebar, and maybe it is in other places, but it just, I think, because of its history, so many people have benefited from the industries that are here in the Northeast, that their families, quite frankly, are pretty well off. However, most people don't realize it, but in Connecticut, you have some of the poorest cities in America. But overall, it's still considered one of the top 3 richest states per capita in the entire country. So, having people using their own capital to finance opportunities is really kind of commonplace, if you will.
right, and that's exactly the power of money that we're talking about at CESJ, and putting that into the hands of every citizen. But yeah, Hartford's a center of banking and insurance, and you are in the financial services business yourself, correct?
I am, and have been for probably the better part of 30 years. Really, all of my professional life, I've been in insurance and insurance related kinds of areas. So, absolutely. It's the reason why, quite frankly, I sort of migrated to this part of the country. As you know, Memphis is my home, my birthplace.
I knew it was somewhere near there. I didn't know it was Memphis. My brother-in-law lives in Memphis. I go there a lot.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Memphis is my home. I'm proud to say that, despite its troubles and its, who knows what goes on in pockets of Memphis. But, Memphis is now the distribution capital of the world because of Federal Express. And,
right. Well, that's the geographical center of the country.
Yeah. No, we're proud to claim, godly proud to claim Memphis as our home. we certainly enjoyed the upbringing, the foundation that they gave me, and quite frankly, the opportunity that was spawned because the people from the insurance industry saw something in the schools there and decided to recruit us to open up new markets, or to try to expand upon existing markets for the industry. So it was a great match for me. I found it very beneficial.
Well, I said geographical center, but I meant population center. That's why so many big distribution companies are there. So
Right, right,
that
right, right.
that has really, made it grow. But isn't it sad that it could grow and be so, I guess, successful in a way and still have just such poverty
Yeah, yeah. That to me is the real anomaly to me that exists in America.
everywhere?
How America. Yeah, yeah. It really is sort of really kind of perplexing. How there can be so much wealth and so much uh, good fortune, and it only seems to be, uh, uh, harvested by a very small few. you
Right.
know, that actually brings us to CESJ. That's one of the reasons why I feel so passionate about what CESJ is doing.
Right, right. Now, before I ask you how you found out about CESJ, while we're still talking about your background, you mentioned the other day you were a basketball player. Is that right?
You know what? That's interesting too. I actually played basketball, college basketball at a little place called Central Methodist College in Fayette, Missouri.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, it's interesting because this past it was at the beginning of September, we were inducted into the school's Hall of Fame.
Oh, that's
My
great.
yeah, my team in 76, 77 was one of the first teams ever to win 20 games for the school, and it actually sort of was the catalyst for the school doing more to recruit and bring others from other places to be a part of their programs there. And I'm told that the school has grown in enrollment almost 2 to 3 fold since that time. So yeah, I played a little basketball despite my height. I obviously loved the game, and it kept me out of trouble, Dave.
Oh, well, that's good. That's
Yeah, it
good. I
kept me
love
out of trouble. Yeah,
basketball. My middle
yeah, it
son
kept
was a
me.
basketball player in high school, and we enjoyed watching him. It's a great sport.
You learn a lot. You mean the
Yeah.
teamwork, the opportunity to help others become their best play, their best version of themselves is really what I learned. It's really was quite an experience, really, very much
Oh, I
so.
bet. That's true, though,
Yeah,
about teamwork because that is so important. Now, tell us
absolutely.
briefly how you came to learn about CESJ and the whole concept of, widespread ownership and stuff like that.
Sure. I met through a mutual friend of Dr. Curlin, senator, actually at the time a state rep out of Oklahoma, whose name was Anastasia Pittman. And Representative Pittman from Oklahoma had been talking to Norm about what was going on in East St. Louis and how there might be opportunity to utilize the CESJ model, Capital Homestead Act, to turn cities around and to actually uplift, those who were in poverty for all intents and purposes um, out of that condition or situation. So, because of my activism, as you mentioned earlier, I was immediately drawn to it, and also because I'm an entrepreneur, and I
Right.
always have been an entrepreneur, despite working for some of the largest insurance companies in the country and perhaps the world. I always held on to my entrepreneurial spirit, and this fit. the Center for Economic and Social Justice was a perfect fit for the activism and the entrepreneurial opportunities that I was hoping for myself, and that I believe is possible, quite frankly, for everyone who is trying to develop an idea.
Wow. I agree. I agree. And
Yeah,
that's true because you are a businessman and you know that the free market works. And yet
that's right.
there's so many people who are not empowered by this system. They're left out. And
That's
so,
right.
like the arguments that some of the socialists talk about with, wealth disparity, they do have validity. There is a big wealth disparity problem.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I just think that the Center for Economic and Social Justice explains it in a way where it does not have any offense, to the free market system, and quite frankly, allows everybody to participate in the democracy that we have.
Right.
I think the enhancement that Dr. Curlin and the center has come up with, which talks about, frankly, upgrading or updating our democracy and the way it works, is the solution, quite frankly, or a solution to the problems of poverty and disparity that exist in this country right now.
Right.
Our system is in bad need of an upgrade.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you've really brought a large number of people together around our solutions there in your area. I know the radio show has helped, and you're meeting with influential leaders in politics there. Have there been any developments that you'd like to share?
Well, there's a lot of interest. There's a lot of interest. They have, to some degree, more of a conservative interest, I think, or take more of a conservative position with regards to the actual application of the idea. But there is a ton of interest around the idea of empowering, frankly, everyone. And they just, if there is any hesitation, any trepidation at all, it's because it's such a new idea and that it's such a grand idea that they're a little intimidated by. And
Right.
I think the tough part is that they have to, admit that they've been wedded to ideas that are outdated. And the fear from people politically is when you move away from those ideas that they have embraced for so long, that you could be potentially creating something that, frankly, they can't, see its full potential, and it's a little intimidating. But
Yes.
by and large, yeah, there is great interest from people politically, and I think even to some degree from the business community. But I think there needs to be a greater education and a model, if you will, that we can use to, show the benefits of the just third way.
Right. Right. Yep. That we need more models, whether it's a citizens land co-op or actual fully financed ESOP type business. We need
Mm-hmm.
more of those. We have a few to show, but it's hard to get everyone organized behind something that's kind of revolutionary and hasn't been done a lot, and do something new, especially when
Yeah,
it's so unselfish and doesn't empower a few controllers the way most of the models in this world work.
absolutely. I tell you, our feedback really is that they would really like to try it themselves, but maybe on a much smaller scale, if you will. That's what came out of the meeting that we recently had with the Department of Economic and Community Development. One of the commissioners there did say that, if there was some way we could see, the benefits of it. And then I pointed her to, if you will, Dave, I pointed her to ESOPs in general, how there are successful ESOPs, which is kind of the foundation of the models that we're hoping to create through the Just Third Way. How those ESOPs have flourished in some of the most difficult times in our country,
Right.
and I think they were mildly impressed by that. They asked for the legislation that had been created and put forth by the people in East St. Louis. So we did give that to them, and it looks like they're going to do a bit more due diligence before they decide to present or to move it forward with their colleagues and with other people inside of government. So, we're encouraged by that.
So that's the city of Hartford government that you're talking to, right?
It's both the city and the state. The deputy commissioner, the commissioner for the Center for Economic and Community Development just happens to wear two hats. I don't know how she does it. I think she's going to have to relinquish one. But she's the president of the City Council of Hartford, which is the capital city of the state of Connecticut. But
right.
She's also a commissioner with the state of Connecticut Commission of Economic and Community Development. So I believe that they're progressive enough to want to know more about the idea, but we obviously have to figure out a way to get through the political maze to get the right support to really kind of give it the traction that it needs in order for us to roll out a model that everybody can see how everybody can benefit and participate in it.
Right. Well, there also probably needs to be a specific problem to solve, such as one particular area that needs rejuvenation. If you're going to do the citizens land co-op type thing, like you were saying, that had been proposed and almost made it in St. Louis. So maybe they'll be able to identify a specific problem that really no one else can tackle.
You know what? That is a great approach, Dave. Now that you've said that, I kind of wish we had suggested that in our meeting. We didn't really get that far, but you're absolutely right, because the creation of this is really so beneficial on so many levels. I mean, a solution to not just one problem, but many problems that I think exist really in our economic landscape. I think
it's hard to not stop and focus on one little thing when what we really want to do is solve everything.
If you can deal with the problems of economic disparity, you really can solve a whole lot of problems that exist in our society. I mean, let's face it, it really transcends the medical community, where things are constantly being created to deal with the maladies of society. If you can pay for them,
right,
you really can. And I think sometimes what's missing from the conversation is, I know most businesses are looking for either market share or they're creating new markets. And this is what gets me about people in the financial industry. They talk about it all the time. I mean, having additional customers, opening new markets, market shares, and those kinds of things. I think that the idea that we have at CESJ actually creates its own market.
True.
I believe that the markets are created because of the ability for everybody to participate in the success of the opportunity.
Right.
So I think that, when you're talking market share, creating new markets, enhancing already existing markets, I think CESJ's model, the Capital Homestead Act and the Just Third Way does that. And not only is it creating new markets, and you look at the kinds of industries that already exist, like you mentioned before, banking and insurance, that's included also. I mean, with the creation of new capital, you obviously have to have, loan guarantors. You have other institutions that are responsible for rolling out the mechanisms, And so it has just so many, I think, advantages and so many good things that are a part of it. I just don't know why so many have not taken the time to, to look further into it and
Well,
to
that's
see how it could be so beneficial.
right, right. And that's one of the subjects that I was interested to talk to you about is exactly that, what you mentioned, people who are in the financial field, because so many of our members of CESJ, like Guy and Jim, I think Jim lives near you, they understand finance and the power of, money when it's done right. And that's what sort of made the light bulb come on for them. In fact, Guy told me that he was helping someone with their retirement planning, and they were part of an ESOP. And these
Mm-hmm.
people had been doing menial jobs for 40 years and basically minimum wage type jobs in most places. But because they had a share of ownership in the company, just a slight employee percentage share, they were basically super rich. I mean,
Right.
compared to the
Yeah.
average person. And he
Yeah.
started looking into it, and that's when he found out about who was behind ESOPs and that they had other things. I was down in Texas for a while, and I was listening to these guys on the radio, and it was during the 2008 and 9 when everyone was trying to analyze what was going on with the collapse and everything. And these guys every day would come on their financial show and just crucify the Federal Reserve about how they disagreed with everything they were doing and everything. And at the end of the show, they were always like, anybody has any comments or questions, just shoot us an email and we'll share it with the show and all this stuff. So I sent them an email. I'm like, hey, you guys constantly criticize the Federal Reserve and talk about how terrible they are. Have you looked at this? And of course, they didn't mention it at all. I just don't understand why so many people are so set in the status quo and they know something's wrong. They're criticizing it. And yet they can't just take that next step and say, well, what should it really be like?
Yeah. It is really kind of perplexing to me. I guess I shouldn't be, it doesn't dissuade me from pushing forward, but I mean, I think that obviously to some degree they've got, their own agenda, if you will, and, not really looking, at least with an open mind, completely
Right.
open mind at
It's
what
selfishness, isn't it?
yeah, I think it is. I really do. At the heart of it, in most cases, is just that they've come wedded to ideas, and it's their own self interest.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the hurdle that we have to overcome. There is unfortunately a spirit of envy and of jealousy when somebody else seems to succeed, if you will, and somebody else seems to be, the beneficiary of something that's, that's nice, grand, good, whatever the case may be. Others sort of, inherently think that, that ought to be them. That's as much of an explanation as I can offer, but it becomes pretty obvious. They don't see how it's good for all of us to do well.
Right.
It seems like it's just more commonplace, and it seems more comfortable for some to accept that just a few that's doing well, and we must rely upon them, in order for us to or whatever is left.
Yeah. We're supposed to participate in the crumbs of the trickle down.
Yeah.
But I would like to reach out to those people who think that way and suggest that we're all kind of brainwashed by the system. We have this
Yeah.
hoarding mentality because of the
Yeah.
boom bust, which is really created by the flaws in the whole, frivolous debt model and the compound interest. When you're compounding interest, you got to pay back money that was never created because they're only creating money for themselves. It's just, I mean, just
Yeah.
the mathematics of it is it's got to mess up every now and then. And so people
Oh,
are so
absolutely.
used to these booms and busts that they want to hoard and hold. But if we change that mentality and try to look past that and accept the fact that we've been brainwashed and
Absolutely.
go to the, wider picture of what I've found is when you sort of let go of what's for me and you start thinking about what's for everyone that can be involved, and then everyone can earn and be more successful, and then you actually yourself end up doing better because you've got all these successful people around you. And I'll give you a quick example. I had a little trucking business when I was in the oil field, and there were guys that would call like the company that we hauled for, and they would refer them to the small contractors that were hiring. And one of the guys called me, and he was new. He didn't have experience or anything, so he had to work for someone like me. He talked to 4 or 5 different people. But on the phone call that I had with him, I explained that I wanted to eventually turn it into an employee owned operation, especially after there was profit and stuff. He ended up working for me just because I had mentioned that, you know?
Great incentive. Great incentive.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
really. I
And
mean,
and obviously I ended up being less selfish, and he was earning a little more in his, regular paycheck than other guys who had gone to the other contractors. And
mm,
he turned out to be a friend of mine ever since. And now we're talking about ways that we can start, employee owned businesses and things like that. So I think, it turned into a profitable relationship that I will profit from for life, just
hmm
because I was willing to mention something that didn't involve me being the top down boss.
Man, that is such a wonderful and very powerful testimony. Everybody ought to hear that one.
Yeah,
That is, to me, is the essence of what we're talking about. I mean, it's very essence of it. I mean, you had enough respect for his participation in the success of the effort to want to share it with him, albeit equally or to whatever extent, you
right.
know. But it was just the fact that you were of a mindset, as you mentioned, to could think of it in that way, that it's just it makes perfect sense in my mind for anybody that's working to help any company be successful.
I was going to say the internet is bringing that whole concept of we got to change something, and there's some solutions that people are starting to talk about, and ownership, widespread ownership, is
hmm
definitely at the forefront.
And it should be. And it
Yeah,
should be. And that was my eureka moment when talking to Dr. Curlin, obviously one of the architects of the Just Third Way and capital homesteading. Own or be owned. Frankly, it's a powerful mantra, and I think it's a very fitting one because, look at all that's happening, regardless of whether or not people accept it or not, but with the advent of new technology and the pace at which things are changing, I mean, all of us have to be owners, or let's face it, the people who own those, products, those technologies will wind up owning us, and it really creates an imbalance, I think, in the world and in the world systems when we're forced to be that way. Let's face it, our Creator never meant for us to be owned by anybody except Him. I mean,
that's right.
and not by man. So, I know, as I'm sure you know, that the Just Third Way is just that. It's just, it's fair, it's equitable,
And
and
it's not the only, 2 ways that people propagate, which is a big distraction. That's why I like the third aspect of it.
yeah, it's very profound. It's very profound. And I think I must say, while we have a chance, I'm honored, my friend, to to be a part of it with gentlemen like yourself, who I know, continues to work hard and continues to put in as much effort as can be put in humanly to try to advance this idea and this cause because of what it would mean to mankind. So
Well, I appreciate your support, and I'm definitely supporting you and praying for you too.
Well, I love that. Now, I never underestimate the power of prayer, and praying for you as well, my friend. Praying for you as well, and your family.
Well, thank you very much.
You all the very best.
I sure enjoyed appearing on your show, and now you appeared on mine. And now tell me the actual, if someone wanted to tune in to your show, what is the schedule and like the frequency, or are they on the internet?
Yeah, it's accesstv.org. ACCESS all one word. Accesstv.org, and I'm on channel 6 on accesstv.org. I've taken a bit of a hiatus but I normally appear, and we're planning to reappear around the same time. It's usually Thursday mornings at 8 a.m. We're looking at changing my times, but if you tune in and if you look at the shows that we've already done, when we do return from hiatus, we'll give you notice of any changes in time or schedule. We are hoping
that's a nice website. I'm looking at it right now. That's sharp.
Yeah, thank you. We've got a lot of content out there. And, the idea behind the network is that the information about the community should come from those in the community. And so my show, The Challenge, is about, finding solutions to problems. And, our hope is that, our audience will at least find the solutions that we suggest or offer feasible, plausible, or practical. And can be taken and hopefully expounded upon.
Right. And then you actually are interested in starting a local chapter of CESJ too. I forgot to mention that.
Oh yeah, I'm glad you didn't forget to mention that. We do have a local chapter. Actually, our 501c3 filing has been done.
Oh,
we
great.
have a regular meeting scheduled. For our board meets once a month, and we usually have a regular general membership meeting once a month too. There should be a website for that too. ghcesj.org. As a matter of fact, I have a meeting coming up, and we're going to be updating that website too to invite more members from the general public to our general membership. But we're going around.
Okay, great. Yeah, just looked at that. There is a website there. So if people in the Hartford area want to join the local chapter of CESJ, it's ghcesj.org. That's great, Russell.
That's right. We're excited. We're excited and we're committed. And frankly, we've gotten interest from people outside of Hartford and around the greater Hartford area. So we're actually now in the process of creating a Connecticut chapter of the Center for Economic and Social Justice. So we're not just a local, chapter. We're going statewide. So we're
that's great.
in the process of doing that as we speak.
Well, that is great.
Yeah, we're excited. We are excited. We believe in our heart of hearts that this is the work that we've been assigned to do. So we intend to try to use the platforms that we have to create an even greater platform for those who feel left out of the equation and want very much to participate in it in a very personal way.
Well, I'd like to come to one of your meetings sometime. I don't think I've ever spent any time in Hartford. I think I've just driven through there, but I hope to.
Well, yes, absolutely. We would love that. I can't tell you how excited. Yeah, we would be very excited to have you here. That would be phenomenal.
Well,
We're meeting at one of the colleges. Trinity College usually is where we have our board meetings. It's usually the second Monday or the second Saturday. We sometimes have to do it over the weekend because of the availability of space at Trinity College. But we're also meeting at the public library.
okay, good.
So usually the second week of the month is when we'll meet at one of those locations. So please, look out for that. Hopefully your listeners will keep and make note of that, and hopefully we'll see them at a CESJ meeting.
Absolutely. That would be good if everyone that's listening to this that's anywhere near there, come and join in and see what we can do together.
That's absolutely correct.
Well, hats off
Absolutely
to you
correct.
for all that you're doing, Russell. It's really impressive. It's a lifetime of service, and I've enjoyed your speaking at the Federal Reserve rallies, and always enjoy your contribution to the meetings and the interesting people you've brought in through the years. So it was great to have you on, and I hope we can do it again soon.
Well, I've enjoyed it, Dave. Thanks for thinking of me, and thanks for the opportunity to speak to your audience as well. It's obviously a lifetime commitment. So again, we thank God for you and for the people who are part of CESJ who remain faithful and committed to this work. So
That's right.
thank you.
Thank you, sir. You can join CESJ by going to cesj.org and clicking on participate, and you can become a paying member for $25 per year, and also a student membership is $15 per year, and that qualifies you for discounts on our materials such as books, which you can buy many of and distribute to your friends and family. And also, if you'd like to participate and comment on the podcast, feel free to call. I have a voicemail set up. I'd like to hear what you have to say, and I'll play it on the podcast. The number is 678-719-2840. Own or be owned.